Shiki was just an average delinquent who had been expelled from school, but when a mysterious stranger attacks him and kills his father, he learns that he has demon blood in his veins and decides to master his powers to get revenge. Long ago, a race of demons called Oni lived in Japan, destroying everything and killing humans as they pleased. No one could dare to stand up against them. But then a brave man named Momotaro emerged as humanity's savior. He attacked the base of the Oni, killing thousands of them. But that was just the beginning of a long war between Momotaro and the Oni that continues even in the modern age. Unaware of how this old fairy tale is linked with his destiny, a teenager named Shiki is cleaning his firearm collection while talking to a friend on the phone. He laughs about the fact that he recently got expelled from school because of a fight and says that he doesn't even mind it because he was sick of seeing the ugly face of his classmates each day. Just then, his adoptive dad Tsuyoshi arrives there and hits him on the head, demanding him to explain why he got expelled from the school. Shiki tells him to leave him alone and Tsuyoshi moves ahead to hit him one more time for being an ungrateful bastard. But Shiki dodges him this time. Tsuyoshi then asks Shiki what the hell is up with all these guns because they run a wine shop and not a gun shop. Shiki taunts him that the wine shop is barely running because everyone knows that he is losing customers. Tsuyoshi claps back, mocking him for acting so high and mighty after being expelled from school, and Shiki takes it personally. He says that he will never become a loser like Tsuyoshi, and he is really relieved that they are not related by blood. That hurts the old man's feelings, but then he heads downstairs because of a business call. Tsuyoshi leaves for a delivery, and Shiki sighs, wishing that some rich man had adopted him instead. He then tries to practice his aim, but an explosion outside the house startles him. He goes outside to see what is happening, but a dense fog blocks his view. Suddenly, a gust of strange black mist shoots out of the fog and Shiki falls back in shock. The mist follows him, grabbing his leg and dragging him outside before dropping him on the street. As Shiki gets up and wonders what the hell is happening, a scary old man dressed in white appears there, ready to attack him. However, the very next moment, Tsuyoshi returns there and he rams his car into the attacker before telling Shiki to get into the car. He drives away as fast as he can, saying that their only option is to leave the country now. However, Shiki has still not processed what just happened. He asks his dad how could he just kill someone with his car, but Tsuyoshi tells him that the man is not dead yet, and they need to get as far away from him as they can. He is really distressed and tells Shiki to listen to him carefully, as they don't have much time. Tsuyoshi tells Shiki that he is a descendant of the Oni, and the guy who just attacked him is the descendant of Momotaro. Shiki tells him to stop joking because it is not the time for that, but Tsuyoshi tells him that he is serious. Just then, a blade made of black mist penetrates the car's roof, and Tsuyoshi barely dodges it. He realizes that the attacker has caught up to them, and then suddenly, the windows of their car are covered by black mist, completely blinding them. Tsuyoshi stops the car near an abandoned warehouse and quickly gets out of it, telling Shiki that they need to hide immediately. Just then, the car explodes, and when Tsuyoshi turns back, he finds that Shiki is missing. Luckily, he sees a trail of black mist entering the warehouse and realizes that his son has been taken there. Inside the warehouse, Shiki finds himself trapped in a giant web made out of the black mist, with the scary guy named Samadare standing in front of him. Samadare tells Shiki that the Oni blood in his veins makes him nothing but a pest, and exterminating such pests is the job of the Momotaro agency. Shiki is still in shock that Samadare survived being crushed by a car, but just then Tsuyoshi comes there, telling him that the fairy tale of Momotaro is a real story. He says that for thousands of years, Momotaro and Oni have been at war with each other through their descendants who share their blood. Eventually, the Momotaro descendants joined hands and formed the Momotaro agency, gaining advantage in the battle and forcing the Oni to hide among humans to survive. Shiki still can't understand what is happening, but Tsuyoshi tells him to let Daddy handle it. Samadare suddenly creates two swords out of black mist, and in response, Tsuyoshi also unleashes the same ability to fight him. The two men dash towards each other, clashing their blades and releasing a powerful shockwave. Tsuyoshi somehow pushes Samadare back, but he calls him weaker than he used to be back then. Samadare explains that the black mist is the unique ability only the descendants of Momotaro can use, and Tsuyoshi was once his senior in the Momotaro agency. Shiki is aghast on learning that his dad is a descendant of Momotaro, but Tsuyoshi says that he has forgotten about that entirely. Samadare asks him if he has also forgotten how dangerous Oni are. He declares that for the crimes of sheltering an Oni, Tsuyoshi will also be eliminated. Tsuyoshi responds by attacking him first, but he and Samadare are equally matched in strength. Shiki can only watch their crazy fight in bewilderment, while Samadare asks Tsuyoshi why is he protecting a monster who only lives for destruction. Tsuyoshi tells him to shut up and tries dealing serious damage to him. But Samadare is much faster than he expected. He easily dodges the attack and then hits Tsuyoshi with a super fast combo, severely injuring him and knocking him out. Shiki is devastated on seeing his dad bleed out, and he curses Samadare, saying that he will kill him. Samadare, however, tells him that he is going to go to the afterlife with his dad soon. Just then, Tsuyoshi grabs his feet and Samadare asks him why is he going this far to protect an Oni, and he replies that he needs no reason to protect his son. He says that Shiki has not harmed anyone yet, and it is wrong to kill him just because he has Oni blood. Samadare just creates a black mist sword to finish him off, and the rage boiling inside Shiki finally hits its limit. As his eyes turn red, he swears that he will kill the bastard who is trying to hurt his dad, and his demonic powers awaken. He starts bleeding from every pore of his face, and his demonic horns sprout out of his head. Shiki yells that he will kill Samadare, and when the man turns around to see him, he finds that Shiki is no longer restrained by the web. The very next moment, a bunch of guns made out of blood pop up next to his face, but thanks to his quick reflexes, he manages to block all the shots. However, Shiki has already moved on from that location, and while Samadare wonders where he is hiding, he notices blood dripping from the rooftop where Shiki is hanging upside down like a deranged Batman. Seeing his blood-covered form, Samadare realizes that Shiki has awakened, and now he can fight by manipulating his blood. But that is not even the scariest thing about fighting an Oni. Suddenly, Shiki lunges towards him, pushing him back with his powerful strikes. Samadare quickly flips the table on him, slashing his arm off, but Shiki jumps back and instantly regrows his arm. He then screams madly and Samadare begins to sweat because he realizes that this fight is not going to be easy. Shiki manifests his power in the form of numerous guns made out of blood, and Samadare is forced to use all his strength and speed to block the bullets. Just then, Shiki fires a freaking missile at him, and thanks to his instincts, Samadare dodges it by a very small margin, and the rocket explodes behind him. The old man is forced to run away from Shiki's ruthless assault, but then he throws his sword at him, hoping to take him down quickly. However, that is not nearly enough as Shiki quickly reaches him and kicks him away. Samadare is too tired and injured to move fast enough, and Shiki steps on his face before unloading a full military battalion worth of ammo on his ass. However, Samadare somehow manages to get away with his life, even though he is terribly injured. He curses Shiki, but then suddenly, Shiki collapses and the guns made of blood shatter. His Oni transformation is undone, and as he stares at his bloody hands, Shiki loses his mind, wondering what the hell just happened here. Samadare recalls this as a typical reaction of people who awaken their Oni powers for the first time. With his remaining power, he summons a black mist sword again, deciding to finish his job right now. However, just as he is about to stab Shiki, Tsuyoshi jumps in between them, sacrificing himself to save his son. Samadare asks him how he could risk his life to save the boy, even after seeing the monster he became. Tsuyoshi just thinks of how Shiki was a cute little boy and tells his old friend that it was not a bad thing to be a happy father, even if it was for a short period. Just then, some civilians gather at the site after hearing the explosion and call the fire department, and Samadare decides to retreat for now. He turns into black mist and vanishes, leaving the injured Tsuyoshi and the confused Shiki alone. Shiki panics and tells his dad that he will call an ambulance, but he asks him to stop because he knows this is the end. He just wants to talk to his son one last time at the end. Tsuyoshi tells him that he could never tell him about his Oni lineage because that would mean telling him that there are people out to kill him. But now, he can only ask Shiki to become strong enough to defeat both Momotaro and Oni so that he can live freely and happily. However, Shiki shouts at him to shut up because he is not done with him yet. He begins taking him outside, saying that they will talk after he gets better, and Tsuyoshi just smiles at him once before breathing his last. As he falls to the ground, Shiki loses his mind. He tries to wake him up first, and then starts crying uncontrollably. Soon after that, a man on roller skates arrives there, and when Shiki turns around to see him, he knocks him out with a single tap to his head, before taking him away to a place where Oni like him can become stronger. While he is unconscious, Shiki dreams of the happy moments when he used to play in the park under his dad's watchful eyes. But then the dream turns dark abruptly, with Tsuyoshi dying at Samadere's hand. Shiki wakes up with a jolt as he stares into the bloodshot eyes of Samadere. But when he looks around, he finds himself gagged and tied to a chair in a large empty hall. Right behind him, the skater guy who kidnapped him is doing one-arm handstand push-ups with his umbrella, and he gets back on his feet as soon as he sees Shiki awake. The edgelord introduces himself as Nato, a fellow Oni, and quickly manifests his horns. Shiki is too confused by everything, and he can't even pay attention to Nato, who refuses to tell him where they are right now. He informs him that his dad's body is stored safely in another place, and he brought him here for retrieval and evaluation. Nato then suddenly skates to the whiteboard in the corner and drags it closer to Shiki, before flexing how fast and efficient it is to use roller skates instead of walking. Next, he begins explaining the Momotaro agency to Shiki, saying that he has already seen one guy who can control the black mist and use it like a weapon. The Momotaro agency finds and hunts Oni, and in response, the Oni created their own agency to fight back. Nato says that his job is to find newly awakened Oni like Shiki and bring them to a safe place where he can evaluate if they are worthy of joining the Oni agency. With that brief intro, he puts the whiteboard back in its place and then removes Shiki's gag so that he can interview him. As soon as he removes the gag, Shiki starts yelling at him to free him. He also curses Nato, threatening to kill him if he has harmed his dad's body. And Nato immediately deducts a point from his score that is already 0. He calls Shiki a moron for not understanding what safely stored means because he mentioned it a couple minutes earlier. Shiki gets mad at him and says there is no way he can trust a shady edgelord like him, and Nato wasn't expecting anything else from him. He decides to deduct more points from Shiki's score the more he curses and demands to be set free, telling him to cooperate if he wants to pass the evaluation. Shiki doesn't give a shit about the evaluation, but he wants to be free quickly, so he tries holding his anger. However, he can't even do that properly, and Nato tells him to stop giving him the creepy look. Shiki snaps on hearing this, and Nato decides to evaluate him using a non-standard method because normal things don't seem to work with nutjobs. He takes off his tie, and before Shiki can even realize what is going on, Nato uses the tie to strangle him with his full strength. Shiki panics as he loses his breath, and Nato says that a creature's true nature is revealed when it is close to death, and that is what he wants to see. Shiki tries to resist with his full strength, but he can't get out of the chokehold even after bleeding from every hole on his face. He soon loses consciousness, and Nato is disappointed in him, but the blood that Shiki just lost awakens as a result of its power. It turns into sharp spikes and attacks Nato, who dodges the attack without much difficulty. Suddenly, he finds a Gatling gun made of blood pointing at his head, and behind it, Shiki is in his berserker state. He opens fire at Nato, and then backs away after he is satisfied. But his attacks didn't even touch the edgelord, who protected himself by coating his umbrella in his blood. He deducts 100 points from Shiki's score because he doesn't even know how to use his Oni blood, and then decides to show him how it is actually done, even though he won't remember anything once the berserker state ends. Shiki suddenly lunges towards him, but Nato is prepared for everything, and a few minutes later, Shiki regains his consciousness, lying defeated on the ground. He can't understand what just happened, but then he looks at his red hands and panics, realizing that he went out of control again. Nato calmly sits on top of him, saying that it is natural that his memory is a blank because when an Oni goes into berserk mode, they lose their mind. Around them, the hall is a total mess as a result of their fight, and Shiki tells Nato to stop lecturing him when he is also using his blood as a weapon. Nato immediately makes his blood umbrella disappear, telling Shiki that he never went berserk because he can actually control his power. He then declares that there is nothing to be said anymore because Shiki is disqualified from joining the Oni agency. Shiki still has no idea what the hell is happening, but if there is one thing he knows for sure, it is that Nato is ridiculously strong. He decides to swallow his pride and begs Nato to take him as his underling because he wants to get stronger and avenge his dad. Nato immediately refuses his request, telling Shiki that someone like him who doesn't use his brain while fighting is always the first person to die in a real battle. He calls him a useless disgrace who can neither control his brain nor his power, and Shiki uses every ounce of his strength to hold back his rage. Nato then declares that it is time for him to dispose of Shiki, because a berserk Oni is a liability to everyone. He uses his special ring to cut his thumb, letting a stream of blood trickle out. He turns the blood into an umbrella, and Shiki suddenly gets an idea about how to make him change his mind. He runs away from Nato's range, and then dashes towards him while dragging his fist on the ground till it bleeds. Nato quickly turns his umbrella into a spiky shield that will protect him from any melee attack, and then calculates the possible moves Shiki can use. Shiki jumps up at the last moment, which was among the possibilities that Nato calculated, but then he surprises him by using the spikes to jump to the side and point a bloody gun at his face. Shiki puts all his focus into the gun, shooting a powerful shot with the recoil sending him flying backwards. He can't believe that he managed to land a hit on Nato, but it turns out that he couldn't do it even this time. Nato simply blocks the blood bullet with his finger and shatters it, not giving Shiki any credit for the attack because he went halfway to berserk mode in order to attack him. As Shiki seems to lose his mind again, Nato decides to finish him off with his special move. He puts himself in a protective cage and summons archers made using his blood, ready to shoot at his command. However, as he notices Shiki fighting back against his berserker instincts and getting his power under control, Nato cancels his special move. Shiki is proud that he managed to control his power, but he falls on the ground because he just used up too much energy. Nato can't believe that not only Shiki controlled his powers, but he also suppressed berserker mode, which is not something everyone can do. He asks him how the hell did he do that, but Shiki smugly tells him to accept him as his underling to unlock the answer. Nato tells him that he will think about it, and Shiki decides to take that as a yes. He says that when Nato talked about controlling his blood, he didn't understand but when he saw him slice his thumb and use the blood to create a weapon, he got an idea. He thought that since they were both Oni, he could just ape his and surprisingly, that worked. He didn't understand the fine details though, and he just let his arm bleed while yelling at it mentally to form a weapon. Shiki is still hyped that his gambit worked, and asks Nato what he thinks about that. Nato thinks that it is utter bullshit because that is not how things work. From his experience, dumb and emotional teens like Shiki have a hard time controlling their blood, while rational and calm people like him have the best chance at using their power properly. He thinks that Shiki doesn't listen to reason or even let his berserker mode control him, and he can use his raw instinct to brute force his power into obeying him. He thinks that it is a very rough method, but it can also give someone an explosive amount of power. He begins to wonder what to do with this unique case, when suddenly, Shiki tells him that he needs power to avenge his dad and kill the man who murdered him. He tells Nato that if he takes him in as an underling and teaches him everything, he will become useful to him. However, Nato refuses to consider that possibility. He turns his umbrella into a spear, telling him that people like him are a risk to society, because he didn't even know that he could control his power and just took a gamble. He says that he can't accept him as a lackey, and then acts like he is going to stab him with the spear, but only hits the floor near his head. He tells Shiki that he won't accept him as an underling, but as a student, and that is really confusing for Shiki, because he thinks both are the same thing. Nato tells him that he passed the test barely, but he will give him the chance to prove his abilities. Shiki can't make sense of what is going on, so Nato decides to start from the basics. He tells him that they are on an island called Hell's Doorstep, which was known as Onigashima in the past. It was the place where the original Momotaro massacred demons, but now it is a place where the Oni can live safely. At the center of the island, there is the Rosetsu Academy, which is a military school that trains Oni to fight against the Momotaro agency. Shiki gets freaked out on learning that he is on an island, but Nato pokes his face, telling him that it is not important. The most important part is that the Rosetsu Academy will teach him everything from general education, controlling his Oni blood, fighting techniques, and the history between Momotaro and Oni. Nato is Shiki's homeroom teacher, and he tells him more about how they do things here at the academy, but that is more than his pea-sized brain can handle. Shiki doesn't even care about that because all he wants to know is if he can become strong enough to avenge his dad. Nato can't give him any guarantee, but he tells him that if he can't become strong enough to fight the Momotaro agency, he will be expelled from school. Soon, Shiki gets dressed up, and he is excited to go to a different kind of school, but Nato warns him that other people have passed the test this year, and he is probably the least skillful amongst them. Suddenly, Shiki remembers his dad and asks Nato where his body is. Nato replies that they have kept him in the morgue because they wanted Shiki to handle the funeral as per his beliefs. Shiki gets a bit gloomy on thinking about his dad's death, and Nato tells him that being a gloomy idiot is a waste of time, and he should focus only on becoming stronger so that he can get his revenge. Shiki says that he seems like a nice guy after all, and that embarrasses Nato, who speeds away, telling Shiki that if he doesn't reach the class before him, he will be expelled. Shiki somehow catches up to him, and as he wonders how should he enter the class to farm the maximum amount of aura, Nato just kicks him through the door. Shiki feels like he got some aura debt because of his uncool entry, and he asks the masked boy named Jin for some tissues for his nosebleed. Jin turns out to be an even bigger edgelord than their teacher, and he tells Shiki to stop talking to him. Shiki gets mad at that and starts teasing him for not having his horns yet. Jin simply manifests his horns, saying that only dumb rookies who can't control the horns flaunt them all the time. This comment offends another guy named Ikari, who also can't control his horns. Things start getting tense in the classroom with Shiki getting up close and personal with Jin. However, before things can get violent, Nato suddenly arrives behind them and Shiki finds himself sitting right next to Jin without even realizing when it happened. Jin is equally shocked, but Nato doesn't have time to waste with what his students think. He says that for their first lesson, they are going to play a game of tag. He takes all the students to the forest, telling them that they have 1 hour to get back to the school while avoiding being caught by him. Nato then declares that anyone who doesn't make it back to school in the time limit will be expelled, and he doesn't care about Shiki's objection. He then tells the students that they are free to use their powers, and he will only use his in case someone goes berserk. Jin confidently says that he might get killed if he doesn't use his powers, and Nato has no issue with that. Instead, he says that if someone kills him, they will graduate instantly, and then they can join any squad that they wish to fight the Momotaro agency. He then says that the school is there to prepare them for real-life challenges, and he is going to test them at each step. He asks everyone if they are ready, and Shiki replies that he is going to give it his all and ace the tests. Nato then reveals that there is another rule, and takes out 2 balls that are still smaller than mine. He tells the students that they need to have a ball with them when they reach the academy to pass this test, and then suddenly throws them into the restricted area. The students think that since there are only 2 balls, they will have to fight for them. But then Nato reveals that they will be divided into teams. The first team has Shiki along with Jin and the timid pink-haired bitch, Homer. The second group has the delinquent named Ikari and the nerd Juji, while the third group has the nervous Roku and Kuina, who seems the most confident out of everyone present there. Nato tells the 3 teams that he will enter the restricted zone 15 minutes after them so that they can get a head start, but Shiki interrupts him, saying that he doesn't want to team up with the masked weirdo. Nato tells him that he will be expelled if he can't work in a team, and he is forced to take his words back. After that, Homer politely introduces herself to Shiki, who has never had any sort of female interaction in his entire life. He immediately gets butterflies in his stomach as he sees Homer approach him, and he confidently tells her that he will protect her. She gets flustered on hearing this and tells him that he doesn't need to go that far, because all she wants is to not get in his way. Next, she goes to introduce herself to Jin, but he is an edgy Tate fan who doesn't even bother to respond to her. Homer's low self-esteem kicks in, and she starts crying and apologizing for talking to him. Shiki starts yelling at Jin for hurting the girl's feelings, and then he quickly moves on to comfort Homer, telling her that she should not ruin her cute looks by crying. He then returns to taunt Jin, but the Tate fan tells him to stop being a beta simp. Nato interrupts their quarrel and tells them to head inside because they don't have all day. Jin and Shiki immediately run towards the restricted forest, and after a while of staring around cluelessly, Homer also follows them. Inside, Jin starts jumping through the trees like a ninja from Naruto, thinking about how killing Nato will earn him his graduation and the right to join whichever squad he wants. He wants to take this chance to get on the front lines and face his greatest enemy again. But then suddenly, Shiki tries attacking him from behind, snapping him out of his internal monologue. Jin asks him what the hell is wrong with him, and Shiki replies that he is going to prove that he is stronger than him. Jin is all in for a fight as well, and he removes his mask to reveal some terrible scars around his mouth. Shiki is creeped out, but he says that only weaklings show off their old scars, but Jin doesn't fall for his taunts. He simply removes his gloves, revealing that his hand is covered in stitch marks too. He tears one of the stitches to let out his blood and turns it into circular saws. Shiki is shocked to see this because he thinks that the author of Chainsaw Man will sue them for copying his ideas. Jin tells him to stop wasting his time and run away if he is scared, but Shiki replies that if he runs away now, he won't be able to avenge his father's death. Jin is taken aback on hearing that. But then he suddenly grows menacing as he tells Shiki that they will never be able to understand each other. Shiki tells him that he doesn't want to understand him in the first place, and bites his thumb to release his blood. However, he fails to turn it into a gun this time and panics, wondering what exactly he should do to make it work. He decides to fight back using a stick because that's the only option he has, but he soon realizes that he is no match for Jin, who can cut trees with just one strike of his chainsaw arms. Meanwhile, Homer is trying to find the two boys when suddenly, she hears the loud thud from trees falling on the ground. She suddenly panics and her inferiority complex kicks in, thinking that she is not fit to be in a place like this. However, she cheers up a bit on thinking that Shiki called her cute, and she decides to look for him, not realizing that she was just a few feet away from one of the balls. At the same time, Shiki is trying to fight against Jin with his bare fists. Jin doesn't even use his chainsaw powers against him, and he is still able to whoop his ass with ease. Shiki keeps wondering how can he control his powers so easily, but then he realizes that Jin's ability is different from his or Nato's. He loses his focus while thinking about the true nature of their abilities, and Jin is able to knock him down with a single punch. Shiki feels frustrated because of this, and Jin decides to let the loser cry in peace. However, just as he starts walking around, Shiki gets back up on his feet, telling him that the fight isn't over. The pissed Jin just sends a chainsaw towards him, and at the exact moment, Homer arrives there. Thanks to her negative survival instincts, she doesn't even notice she is walking right in the line of fire. Shiki panics on seeing this, and luckily, he manages to get her to safety, even though he gets slightly wounded in doing that. He quickly gets up from top of Homer and tells Jin to apologize to her, but Jin replies that it would have been her fault if she died from his weak attack. Shiki is pissed at this, but then suddenly, he hears Homer chanting she is sorry like a prayer. He tells her that it is not her fault, but Homer is in a trance and she suddenly starts bleeding out from her nose. The blood slowly takes the form of a giant human, and both Jin and Shiki freak out, wondering what in the name of Attack on Titan is this. Homer tells them both to run away because her female Titan is going to kill them. Just as she says this, the female Titan hits the ground with her full strength, and Shiki barely avoids getting hit by her attack. Jin, on the other hand, jumps right towards the female Titan to fight back, but his chainsaws can't do much damage to her giant body. Shiki asks Homer if she can't stop that thing, and she apologizes because she can't do anything. She suddenly collapses after losing too much blood, and Shiki decides to get her away from the female Titan to help her. However, he is shocked to see the Titan protecting her, and even Jin wonders if Homer's blood has a will of its own. Suddenly, the female Titan starts spitting blood violently, and while Jin hides behind a rock, Shiki takes the full force of the attack head-on. The crying Homer asks the female Titan to stop, calling her elder sister, and Shiki gets up, confused about what she means. Homer once again asks him to run, but Shiki refuses, saying that she will die of blood loss if he doesn't help her, and he doesn't want to see anyone else die in front of him ever again. Suddenly, the female Titan lets out a powerful roar whose shockwave reaches even the rest of the students outside the forest. Nato watches everything from a treetop, and he decides to let Shiki and Jin try to deal with Homer's blood release ability before he steps in. Back at the location of the battle, Shiki tries injuring himself to draw blood and use it as a weapon, but that doesn't happen. The female Titan attacks him and he dodges, but then the female Titan scoops up some rocks from the ground and hurls them at him. He takes a hit and gets flung away, but the thing that hurts him most is how pathetically weak he is right now. He has never lost a fight before, but now he is just a useless brat. He starts crying because of frustration, but then Jin comes out to join the fight and tells him to go home if he is going to cry like a bitch. Shiki gets mad at him and tells him that he was just sweating from his eyes, but Jin doesn't have time for that. He slices open his wounds again, and this time, he creates 2 different types of chainsaws on either arm. The damage he took from the female Titan's previous attack is still bothering him, but he is determined to win every fight in front of him. Nato just watches from afar, and he is impressed that Jin can create 2 types of weapons at the same time. He begins explaining how Oni blood can take any form they imagine, but it is often influenced by their past trauma, preferences, and experiences. Meanwhile, Jin rushes towards the female Titan, using the circular chainsaw to climb up. He then tries to ape Levi Ackerman by attacking the female Titan's neck, but she sacrifices an arm to protect herself. While he fights the female Titan, Shiki screams at his hand to make something. He wonders why he can't make a weapon when Jin can, but then suddenly, he realizes that Jin only makes things for cutting. And even Homer has a personal connection with her female titan. He thinks that he can make guns because he likes them more than an average American, and he suddenly figures out how to control his powers. On the other side, Jin is having a hard time fighting the female titan, who suddenly lets out a loud roar that bursts his eardrums. He loses his sense of balance and thinks that he is going to die, and even Nato gets ready to step in, but then Shiki declares that he will take the fight up now. He points a powerful grenade launcher at the female titan, and Nato is impressed that he figured it out. Shiki is thrilled to try out his new weapon, but then the female titan attacks him. He dodges her attack and then fires a grenade at her, blowing her apart instantly, and both Jin and Nato are stunned to see his power. The female titan starts vanishing as her fragments are scattered everywhere, and Homer loses consciousness. Meanwhile, Jin is still astonished by Shiki's firepower when it suddenly starts raining blood. However, it was just the blood scattered in the air from Shiki's previous attack, and it soon turns into normal rain. Jin realizes that Shiki's attack didn't just kill the female titan, but it also changed the weather. Shiki, on the other hand, doesn't even think about that. He starts heading towards Homer to see if she is fine, but then his vision gets blurry and he falls to the ground, unable to move. Just then, Nato comes there, telling him that he unleashed a ridiculous amount of blood just now, and that is why his body doesn't have any strength left. Shiki tells him that he can still go on and somehow forces himself to stand up. But that doesn't last even for 5 seconds, and he once again falls to the ground. Nato calls him a noob who can't even control his power, but he realizes that Shiki's power was beyond anything he has ever seen. He tells Shiki that if he uses up too much blood, he could even die, and that makes him worry about Homer instead of him. He asks Nato to check up on her because she might have used a lot of blood, and he is fine being checked after her. Nato was not expecting Shiki to worry about another person when he himself is in such a serious condition, but just as he is about to help them, Jin launches a surprise attack on him. Thankfully, Nato's reflexes are fast enough to block the attack, and he pushes Jin back, who tells him that they don't need to worry about the losers. Nato asks him what happens if Homer dies because she can't get emergency treatment, and Jin replies that it doesn't concern him. Nato is disgusted on hearing that, and he makes it clear to Jin that he hates selfish bastards like him. Jin doesn't care about that either, and he just asks Nato to confirm that he can graduate if he kills him. Nato promises that he is speaking the truth, and that is enough for Jin to dash straight at him. Nato blocks his blood chainsaw using his umbrella that is made from the same material as the Hulk's pants because that thing is indestructible. He then presses a button to release a smoke screen, and Jin thinks that he is trying to take him down with a surprise attack. He is confident that he can kill Nato the moment he steps into his range, but the next moment, he gets hit by some swift bullets. He immediately takes cover behind a tree, and Nato keeps firing rubber bullets from his multi-purpose umbrella towards him, saying that the bullets won't kill him, but they will hurt like hell. He also purposefully targeted Jai's injured hand earlier for maximum damage. Jin realizes that Nato plans to keep a safe distance between them because he thinks that he can only use close-ranged weapons. However, he has a few secret tricks for times like these, and he immediately leaves the tree's cover, dodging Nato's bullets before sending some flying blades towards him. Nato dodges them easily, but he is surprised that Jin has a counter for enemies that can fight outside his range. Jin keeps attacking him and then appears behind him mid-air, thinking that he won't be able to defend now. However, Nato just throws a bomb at him, and Jin panics. Luckily, it turns out to be another harmless smoke bomb, and Jin thinks that Nato is going to shoot him from a distance again. That is why he doesn't even anticipate Nato coming in from behind and hitting him with a spine-crushing punch. Nato lectures him about being too sure about his predictions in a battle because that makes him vulnerable to surprise attacks. Jin is too injured and exhausted to even move now, but he keeps trying, and Nato has to invert his umbrella and use it as a cage to contain him. Jin keeps trying to break free from the umbrella, and Nato asks him if he is so desperate to see his dad. He suddenly goes silent on hearing this, and then asks Nato how did he know about that. Nato replies that he looked into his files, so he knows a few things about him, including the fact that his dad is a Momotaro. While every cell of Jin's body revolts on hearing this, Shiki is shocked to learn that both of them have similar backstories. However, Jin is filled with hatred as he admits that his father is a Momotaro, and that bastard took everything away from him. He killed his family and then did experiments on him, leaving scars all over his body. Jin remembers how he survived on garbage and the hatred against his father. He swears that he will kill him with his own hands, even if he has to risk his life for that. In his enraged mode, Jin suddenly gets a burst of power, allowing him to uproot the cage holding him down. However, before he can do anything, Nato grabs him by his face and then slams him into the ground, calling him a stupid brat. He tells him that if he dies while chasing his dream, he is an idiot who will never be able to achieve them. He tells him to live for the sake of making his dream come true, even if it means accepting defeat and humiliation. Jin finally stops moving with that, and then Nato calls the school to send the nurse because he has an injured student here. He informs the school that Homer has been retired from this test because of her blood loss, and Jin has also been tied up. Shiki, on the other hand, is still standing, and Nato tells him that he has barely 6 minutes before the time limit runs out. He has one of the balls in his hand and tells Shiki that he can either try to take it from him or find the remaining ball within 5 minutes and reach the school. Shiki says that it is not fair, but he has no choice except playing by Nato's rules. He immediately runs away, and Shiki decides to chase after him to see what he does. Meanwhile, Jin is sitting silently where he is tied to a tree when suddenly, Shiki pops out of the bushes nearby. He walks over to Jin, telling him that he will free him, but in exchange, he will have to work together with him. Jin is shocked by this offer, and Shiki says that neither of them can beat Nato on their own, but if they work together, they have a chance. Jin refuses, saying that being rescued by an idiot will lower his pride, and Shiki doesn't even bother to debate the point that he is an idiot. He asks Jin if his pride is more important to him than his goals, because he cannot achieve his goals just by sitting here. Jin asks him why does he even care about that, and Shiki reveals that his dad was a Momotaro too. Jin is shocked to hear this, and then Shiki pulls the good old Naruto on him, telling him that they are the same. Meanwhile, Nato is looking for Shiki, and since he can't find him, he doubts that he returned. Just then, he sees Shiki running away while cursing Jin, and decides to corner him immediately. Shiki stops as soon as Nato jumps in, telling him that he is running out of time while flexing his ball. Shiki starts cursing Jin in his mind, not because he is not helping him, but because despite being rescued, he wanted to be the one in charge. Just then, Jin jumps at Nato from above, aiming for the ball, but he easily dodges him. However, that was just a feint, and Jin's real move is to throw a stone tied to a rope at Nato. The rope loops around him, quickly restraining him, and then Shiki catches the other end. He and Jin start pulling Nato with all their might, but he digs his heels into the ground, pretty sure that they don't have enough stamina to win against him. Suddenly, Jin shoots a blood blade at Nato, forcing him to dodge, and he loses his balance in an attempt to do that. That is enough for Shiki, who rushes towards him and hits the ball out of his hands. The ball lands near Jin, and Nato is pretty sure that if he tries to take it to the school, Shiki will try to steal it from him. He plans to take it from them while they fight, but to his surprise, Shiki tells Jin to take the ball and run. Jin does exactly that, and Shiki keeps cheering on him excitedly. He tells Nato that they got the ball from him, but then Nato reminds him that only the person who takes the ball to the school passes, and at this rate, that will be just Jin. Shiki is stunned on realizing that, and Nato realizes that he is a complete moron who doesn't think about the benefits and losses before taking any action. He does indeed regret his decisions quickly and yells at Jin to come back, but he is too far away to listen to him now. Jin is sure that he can make it back to the school in time at this rate, but then he remembers how this would not be possible without Shiki's help, and suddenly, he can't just abandon him. He turns around and runs towards Shiki, who is dumbfounded and asks him if he is as directionally challenged as Zoro. Jin tells him to shut up because the only reason he is doing this is because he doesn't want to owe his success to an idiot. He would rather fail and achieve his goal on his own, and that is why he asks Shiki to take the ball and head to the academy. However, just as they are about to make contact, a small pink creature comes running there at great speed and stops right in between them. Nato immediately pauses the test, telling them that they shouldn't fight when Muku, their high-speed courier delivery pet, is here with them. He knows that Muku is dispatched only when there is an emergency, and he activates the radio on its back to receive a request for backup from the Kyoto branch that is under attack by the Momotaro agency. Outside the test zone, the rest of the students are patiently waiting for their turn, thinking that Shiki and others failed because it is already past the time limit. However, Nato returns along with Shiki and Jin just then, telling the other students that the Kyoto branch is in serious danger, and it is requesting backup, so they are heading there instead of conducting the test. They immediately get on a boat and head towards the Kyoto branch, and the students have mixed opinions about being on actual battlefields so quick. However, Nato tells them that they won't be fighting, and he only needs them to support